Right. So having learned how to utilize our Django templates, how to utilize inheritance, and attempting not to repeat ourselves over and again across pages, we've seen how to link this page with a URL, the URL keyword. Now it's time to actually add a bit of styles. Remember, our core focus in this course is the back end, so we're not having to polish the front end to look very bespoke, just working with simplistic designs or example representations for the purpose of this course. Now let's learn how to actually add a bit of styling to our code. Now in Django, you refer to these as static files. Files like CSS files, your image files, your JavaScript and all of that they're referred to as static files. And as such, you contain each and every one of them in your static files. Let's get into it. First, in your setting, you would want to go set a static URL, which we have here as static files. Then you want to set your static roots. You want to set your static roots to this static files. So these static files tells Django, this static URL and static files, they tell Django on how to handle your static files. Now looking at this static root, you see that I have base directory here, and my base directory is this. It means my parent directory, find the folder static files. So this means that whatsoever I am going to have in my static files, it's going to be in a directory just on my part working directory static files, right? So with this, we're going to have defined CSS code. So let's have a folder inside of it and name it CSS. Sorry, let's rename that. Have CSS. Then within the CSS, we have a file styles.css. So we'll try to give a basic styling. So let's take the sample code from here. The basic styling. So we take this and place it here. So with this, we get back to this is targeting key components of already existing template. So when we get here, it is necessary to actually link these static files link this style sheet. Tell Django it's a style sheet and it's static. However, to declare this static tells Django that this is a static files, and because it is a static files, treat it as such. In that case, we are also going to have to use something here which we call load static. So to be able to use static in your template, you must ensure you load static just before you use it. So let's see. Okay, we're not having it displayed yet. because we're having a 404 not found. So let's try to debug this. We get to our settings of our static files, right? I'm still having a 404. So we're missing a setting. Right, check this out. Static CSS styles.css. So let's quickly, we're going to introduce you now to debugging. So where you have to literally Google, look at debugging proper later. So when we Google this, let's add Django. Right. Elite local run. Right. We have a static URL. Oh, correct. We need to include our static directories. So we have static directory. Let's see. Okay. Right. So this reminds us quickly that in local, you actually use static directories. Right. So with this, you can see that our page is styled. Our home, you can see that our CSS property is now being utilized. That's correct. So on production, that is where you use a static root. Let's proceed. Having learned how to add styling, how to use our style sheets within our HTML in Django, how Django handles static files. Remember that in local server that you're using static directories and not static root. Right, so there occur one more scenario such that you want to have to look through some items from your view. How actually are we going to handle this? How do we render this with Ginger in Python Django templates? Now to achieve this, let's say on our about this page, then we have an order list, and we want to have a couple of items here. Let's say a paragraph tag, say I have learned this thus far. Then you would want to have to pass some context from your views to your about. So let's pass in learnings, and we have templates and inheritance. Then let's have let's, because we wanted multiple, we're going to enclose it in a list, say templates and inheritance, static files, and we have length of the thing looping. Right, so let's get to our about page. Then we want to get these learnings, which is a list. We want to actually have to render each item. So to do this, we need to find a way to loop through. So we are going to have this for learning in learnings, then we end for and for. So we'll take this, put it here. So we want to call the learning. Right. Let's refresh this. Go to about us. You see that each I have learned this thus far, and each of the items within the list is returned here because we've looped through each of these items. So this is how you loop through items in your Django template. Also, you might want to handle conditionals, and to handle conditionals, let's say on our about page, you want to have a conditional that says let's have, close this, let's have logged in as true. So we have to use this. So when we get to our home, so we want to say this if logged in, close this, sorry, then we'll say you are logged in. Else, if the person is not logged in, you are not logged in. And then we close the if block. So let's look at this in action. Refresh the page. You can see this is the home page. You are logged in. Because I have passed in true here, so if I change this to false and get back to this page, you can see you are not logged in. So this is how to handle looping in our Django templates, and also how we work with conditionals. The essence of this is that you might want to restrict access to a resource based on authentication or whatsoever. So that is the need for conditionals within your template. Right. So we've come to the end of this section, and I want you to redo the project as a capstone project, make it more robust, make it more interactive, and of course, do well to share your win. Remember the project structure where you have your templates, your base directory, your pages, your different pages as defined as you wish. Right. So this section, we've been able to treat template inheritance. We've been able to have consistent elements, working navigation, and dynamic data coming from our views. We've been able to have our CSS working with static files within Django template. Next section, we're going to get deeper into Django. We're going to look at and understand Django models, database, CRUD operations, and then we're going to look at Django admin interface. Thank you and see you in the next section.